go deep moment with mathematics. So as we close out this first session, well, we're this first portion of our session today, we're going to pause and just revisit the first of the 5 equity-based mathematics teaching practices, the going deep with mathematics. And remember, this practice is all about engaging students in the task and strengthening that conceptual understanding, the procedural fluency, and problem solving and reasoning. That's the whole getting the kids to think part. That's all the thinking skills behind it. So it's about getting students to have that skill of thinking and tracking it. So how do the instructional shifts of focus and coherence allow you to go deep with the math with your students? So I'm just thinking to myself, and you guys can use the chat if you want to share some of your comments also about what opportunities you see for your students to go deep with the Mathematics Engage New York. So just thinking through some of the portions, whether it be the sprints or the application or the problem set, if you could think of something, what allows itself for those students to have that going deep moment in Engage New York. So I'll let you chew on that and think about it for about a minute as you guys might be figuring out how you want to respond in the chat. I definitely agree, Jolene, those application problems. That's what came to my mind first when we were thinking about going deeper. Those application problems definitely make kids do that. You have to think through it. There's so much to analyze and figure out. That's a big going deeper moment for students.
Well, and I like at the beginning of a new unit, they tie it to previous learning. Mm-hmm. So it's not just focusing on what we're learning, it ties it to something and then pushes it forward. So that's why I like those application problems.
Awesome. I agree. They seem like they're really tough when you first get going with the curriculum, and then the kids get in the routine of it and they start to understand how to think through the different parts of the lesson. So that's a big one. Yeah. Did anyone else share one?
I see that Ambrosita said the concept development portion.
Mm-hmm. Getting that foundation built. I agree. There's a lot of opportunities for students to go deeper. Oh gosh. That has never happened before. Did everyone hear that? I love this training with you guys. Just so many things are happening. It's exciting in here.
It's real world. That's how life is nowadays.
Yeah, this is real life. I hope you guys don't take any points away for that. I apologize, but you can definitely see how some of this deep thinking is already embedded in the curriculum, in the activities, and in the lessons that we have with Engage New York. Sorry about that, y'all. All righty. So thanks for sharing your chat also. All right, so let's move on to today's purpose in this walkthrough. This is the exciting part. So we're going to have a chance to examine the trajectory of learning for the year, all the connections that we've made to the shifts and the equity-based practices. We're going to turn our attention to the understanding of the curriculum. So as we become familiar with the curriculum, and as many of you might already be, we want to understand it through the lens of the shifts and through the lens of the equity-based teaching practices. So this will help us understand and keep focus on the building that mathematical proficiency within our students, and give us a chance to sort of pay attention to how the content looks on the outside. There's a lot of different opportunities for us as teachers, as facilitators. That's sort of what I would call myself in an Engage New York lesson. I'm more of a facilitator. Of course, we provide the information and we direct, but the students are really doing a lot of the thinking and the learning. So if I could have a brave participant read out our guiding questions for our walkthrough, that would be awesome. Any soul?
I'll read them.
Thank you.
Just since it's on here, what evidence of the shifts do you see? Focus, coherence, and rigor. And what evidence of the 5 equity-based practices do you see?
Awesome. So we're going to be thinking about those 2 questions as we go through this Engage New York lesson walkthrough. What do you see? So hopefully you can hold on to this purpose and these questions as we go throughout the lesson. All right, so if you're already familiar with how Eureka is laid out, it's got a flow to it, a very beautiful flow, all right? And so we're going to experience that flow of the lesson from start to finish and see some examples of those 5 principles in action. So as you can see on this slide, each lesson starts with the fluency practice, which is the invitation to to the students, the mathematicians, to engage in all of the thinking. And from there, students engage in 1 to 3 application problems and concept development with discussion and a problem set. So toward the end of the lesson, there is a student debrief that allows students to discuss and synthesize their learning. And of course, I love the exit ticket, which allows you to sort of gauge your student understanding and plan for what you're going to be doing the next day. So as you look at those, you might be very familiar with them, or you're sort of still wondering how to get that to move throughout your lesson. We're going to engage in a lesson together. So we're going to keep this flow in mind. And to the point of this lesson and this walkthrough, you're going to experience it as a student. So we sort of want you to switch roles with us. As Alicia and I are teachers, we're all educators here, but you get a moment to just be the student for this portion, okay? And so that way you can step back and sort of see how the instruction looks. Having someone just, go through it for you and not having someone talk at you, for it. So do you guys have any questions about that? You're going to be the students, we're going to be the teachers in this activity, in this practice, just so everyone gets an idea of how we walk through the lesson. All righty. So first of all, this is going to be a grade 5 module 2 lesson walkthrough. Before we jump into it, just let me paint the little picture where you're going to be a student at this point in their learning in this module. And the earlier topic was students making sense of multiplication through area models. So that's what they have been doing in previous lessons. And in this following lesson, students are going to complete the area models and the traditional algorithm side by side to try to make connections. So in this lesson, students will work primarily with the traditional algorithm, but they should be doing so from a place of understanding the whole place value system. And so as you guys know, when you go through your engagement, your curriculum, and you look through these pages of what the module is like, it's laid out for you bit by bit. This is really looking at multiplication practices for algorithm, the traditional one, and then for the area model as well. All righty. So this is going to be the fluency practice. This is getting the students to warm up their brains. I actually used to get out of our chairs. We used to do some movements and different things for the warm up. And I think for us, we just have to think about doing it in really small snippets. Like we can't think of taking these things and making it 10 minutes. We really have to focus on, this is just going to be less than 5 minutes. It's really, really meant to be quick. So you want to remind your students of some of the important vocabulary words. And in this case, as I say some of the words, we're going to see how they appear on the screen. So you would ask your students, what does the word base mean? We're looking at that as a very important component of this lesson, the word exponent and the word power. So when we see those expressions and when we ask the students, well, which one is the exponent? Which one is the base? You guys would respond by saying, oh, 7 is the base, or 4 is the exponent, and which is the power? And students would say, oh, 4 is the power. So they understand that the exponent and the power are both what we would call the number 4. So all of these things are stated and built into the curriculum. So I'm going to ask you guys to participate with me like you're my little kids. You're my students, all right? You're my 5th graders. So it's already scripted into the Eureka and engaged in your curriculum. So the teacher would say, for example, what is 10 to the 2nd power? And the kids would say, the base is, and you guys would say?
10.
10, wonderful. What is the exponent? And you guys would say 2, exactly. And so the teacher would then say 10 squared as a multiplication sentence. What does that sound like, boys and girls? And the kids would say 10 times 10. And 10 times 10, as students know, they would say 10 times 10 is 100. And then the teacher would say, well, this is a number sentence without using a multiplication sentence, understanding that 10 to the 2nd power, or 10 squared, is still a multiplication sentence, but it equals 100. And you would repeat this process with your students for the next one. So you would say, boys and girls, can you tell the base? What's the base, boys and girls? They would say 10. What's the exponent? They would say 3. Now, how would you say this as a multiplication sentence? 10 to the 3rd power. And what is that? When you think about it as, the expression, 10 times 10 times 10. So you repeat that, 10 to the 3rd power, and then 10 to the 4th power, 10 to the 5th power, and so on and so forth. And that is literally your fluency practice or warm up for the day. So you want to be able to do that, in a rather smooth and quick mode. And that's as simple as that first practice is. All right. And then moving along to the next one, you see that it gets a little bit more difficult. It's a little bit more complex. We're dealing with more numbers. This would be the fluency practice. So when I share this with my students, I want them to understand that this is a demonstration, just for the sake of time, we're going through it together. It addresses one of the skills that the students need to know about how we can define the product of 342 and 251. They're going to be using both the area model and the standard algorithm. And the idea here is for the students to connect those two different strategies by having the visual right in front of them. So this is helping to promote the conceptual understanding. So sitting down with your students, walking through this on the screen, on the smart board, or virtually, if you have a virtual whiteboard, you want them to be able to work through both practices and make those connections between what they say in the multiplication sentence. All right. So, and then on to the next portion would be the application problem. This is what I've heard several of you mention as far as going deeper into the mathematics. And you would tell your kids, good job going through the fluency. And we're going to jump into the application problem where we can apply what we've learned to the math that we're going to be doing. So you would ask a student, say, little Miss Stephanie, would you like to read the application problem for us so you can get the students activating their thoughts and ideas about what the about what the application problem looks like?
Sorry, we're all together. Application problem. Okay, hold on. Maybe not me, okay?
Okay, no problem. Sorry. Any other brave soul? I want to give you guys the autonomy to participate and, volunteer.
I'll be the problem.
Thank you.
I can read it. I was trying to unmute. I'm on two screens and I can't find my tools. Erin and Franny entered a rug design contest. The rules stated that the rug's dimensions must be 32 inches by 45 inches and that they must be rectangular. They drew the following for their entries. Show at least 3 other designs they could have entered in the contest. Calculate the area of each section and the total area of the rugs.
Unmute. Thank you so much for reading that, Wanda. So after reading that problem with the students, you have to ask them, what is this problem about? Sort of like, what's the main idea of the problem? Ask a student to share out, well, this problem is about rugs and a rug design contest. And what do you notice about the designs? What do you wonder? So giving students that time to think through those questions, to analyze the problem, maybe circle, highlight, underline, and start doing some sketches of what the problem is asking them to do. So as we would ask our students to do this, we're asking you guys to sort of digest and chew on it yourself as the teacher. So you read the problem one more time to yourself, which is something I'm sure all of us do as educators. Read it once out loud, read it again to yourself, pause and ask yourself, what is the problem asking me to do? So as I'm reading through all of this and as I'm thinking through this with my students, a lot of this is already embedded into the math curriculum, and it gives you the teacher script to read teacher and student and teacher and student. So if anyone else wants to volunteer to read it for a second time, you could have them rephrase it. This is a part of having the students, sort of start taking control over their own thinking. So let's take about 1 minute to begin thinking ourselves about what this problem wants us to go through. I'm going to send, we're going back into breakout rooms. Yeah, we're not going to do this all together, but we're going to back into breakout rooms to sort of collaborate and put our own thoughts together to see if we can finish the problem. And you can see here what the students have already done. So in these breakout rooms, I think we are going to go in pairs. Am I right, Alicia?
That's correct. There's going to be, I believe that there is just 2 groups that might have a third person.
Okay, awesome. So we'll go into our breakout rooms and try to solve this problem, thinking about some of those questions and sort of even sharing with each other how you would do it in the classroom if you were sharing this screen with your students. So yeah, there we go. Just on those other parts of the Jamboard, if you keep scrolling through, you'll see the same problem and they're labeled by room. So since we're going in pairs, I think we're going to have 8 or 9 rooms, if I'm not mistaken.
I think we're actually a little smaller today, so we're only going to have about 5 rooms, which is okay. So you'll just look at whatever breakout room you're in, everybody, and that's the area that you'll add your sticky note of thoughts, okay? And I'm gonna actually put that link in the chat just one more time for the Jamboard, just in case anybody maybe exited out or anything, no worries. Here's